Okay, let's get into it, speedsters. Right, here's what to do if you suck at marketing, or if your marketing's not as good as you think it should be, because it honestly can be really quickly at speed. And I'm going to give you a little strategy today called the Fat Lady's Revenge, and it's something I've actually poached from another industry, or from an industry, which I think turns over about $60 billion a year, and they use this all the time, and no one else uses it to any great length, and I think it can be applied anyway. So let's get the Fat Lady's Revenge into action for your business and just see what impact it makes. You'll soon know at the end of this video the impact it can have. Now, some of the big complaints people have got is they're feeling like a bit of a commodity. Is that you? So this will help you get instantly valued by your market and help make selling effortless. Well, certainly effortless, certainly make it a hell of a lot easier, okay? So without any further ado, most people when they start, let's say you're being treated as a bit of a commodity, so before is now, might be being squeezed on price. You're finding that in this big recession, that the sales cycle's a bit longer, your profit's a bit lower, maybe you're not being valued by your market. And you might be asking yourself, well, hey, I'm doing a great service, so how come I'm not making lots of money? And there's a reason. And the reason is you're not communicating properly. And when you do communicate your value properly, you can sell truckloads more, earn more, and become the #1 choice in your market. If you do it really well, okay? But even if you do it badly, you're still going to do better. And this is a real quick one to do. It's real simple. So, a little story. I've got a friend, Dan, he runs a training company. And he turned up to a meeting having worked till 4 in the morning on this project. And he emailed the document that he was working on to the client. And he turns up the next morning at 9 to a meeting, and the client's already read it. And he says, what do you think? And he says, Dan, it's not good enough. You've missed some key things, and you know, a lot of it's got to be rewritten. And Dan's sitting there thinking, I worked from 9 o'clock at night till 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're saying it's not good enough. I worked till 4 in the morning on this project. And the client said, Dan, it's not about inputs, it's about outputs. And Dan was telling me this story later on because he said, you know what? He said, the guy's right. It's not about inputs. All that matters is the results. And I was sitting there thinking, because I'd worked till 4 in the morning and because I'd done all this stuff, that would make a difference. He said, I didn't like it, but it's true. It is all about results. So, now, here's the psychology. Just remember that little story as we go through the strategy, the Fat Lady's Revenge. If you want to sell what John Smith buys, you need to see the world through John Smith's eyes. And you've got to start thinking like a buyer, not a seller. Now, most people, when they're doing their marketing, find it really, really hard to think like a buyer. So how do you do it? Well, first you've got to realize, here's what a buyer is thinking. Sam Hastings, get offline, man. Get out of my picture. I'm just going to run with this anyway. I ain't got time. This is speed marketing, not do it 5 times marketing. There's planes going off in the background. Absolute chaos. Anyway, you've got to realise the psychology, reasons people don't buy. Number 1, they don't want it, they can't afford it, or they don't believe you. Okay? Now, there's not much you can do about number 2, but there's certainly stuff you can do about 1 and 3. I'm going to show you at the end how you make yourself more believable. But that other one, they don't want it because you haven't communicated value. So let's have a look at value. We just need to understand this first. They don't want it, right? They don't want it. So how do we create want? Well, want comes down to a perceived value. Go away, Sam. Go away. Right. Quid pro quo. You must have heard of that. From the Latin meaning this for that, which indicates, this is according to Wikipedia, of course, which is the definition of anything. Indicates more or less equal exchange or substitution of goods. So if you're selling a book and you're giving the value of the book and the buyer is giving you some money, then that's how it works. There's an exchange of this for that. Okay. Now, quid pro quo. How you communicate your value when you're giving your book or whatever it is, how you communicate the value of the exchange you offer makes you rich or poor. So if you're good at communicating huge value, now a book can be a book, right? A good book could be worth $1 or $1 million, depends on how you communicate its value and how it's perceived more specifically by the buyer. So let's have a look. this would be an easy deal. If I was selling a book that the buyer perceived was worth $100 and I was charging, he was going to give me $10, so $100 worth of value in a book, $10 in cash, easy deal to do, right? Buyer's giving me $10, I'm giving him a $100 book. What would be, nice tick. What would be a hard deal is if the buyer was perceiving, the buyer was giving $10, but he was perceiving I was only giving a dollar's worth of value in return. Now, obviously, there's no deal going to happen here, okay? Because I've only communicated a value that the buyer perceives as a dollar. I'm going to have to turn that off, eh? I don't even know how. Anyway, let's just run with it. No good, no deal. Now, this is what happens a lot of times where you might be asking $10 for something, but the buyer doesn't really understand the value of what it is you're offering because you haven't communicated it well enough. So what tends to happen when they don't understand? They don't buy. Okay, and there's lots of, how many times have your buyers not bought off you or your potential clients not bought off you because they didn't really understand that they were getting more than $10 worth of value from you? I would say lots of times, and there is stuff you can do about it. So a lot of people, when they're selling, they talk about a whole lot of stuff which is not the result. It's not the benefit. It's not the value you're going to give. This is you've got to think, this is not going to work. This is not thinking like a buyer, that's thinking like a seller. So remember, it's not about the inputs, Dan, it's about the outputs. We've got to be talking results. And if you're selling results, you're going to make more money. If you start selling how to or how we do it and how much it's going to cost, you get positioned and perceived as a commodity, which ain't much good to you. If you're over here, you've got a really good chance of doing really well. It's not about the inputs, Dan, it's about the outputs. Gotcha. Now, particularly in recessionary times when it's a bit tougher and pennies need to be accountable, if you can't guarantee some desired result to some specific group, then you don't deserve to be in business. If you can't guarantee some desired result to a specific group, you know what I mean? If you're just going to sell, I'm going to do something I'm going to give you 2 hours worth of my work, that's not as powerful as saying, I'm going to get you this result that you're after. Okay? Makes sense? Are you doing that? I know everyone sits out there saying, oh, I sort of do that already. No, you don't. You don't. Not well enough. You don't, honestly. If you're not rich, you're not doing it. Right, now here's some reasons that sellers don't talk about results. Either they don't know the results their clients are getting, and I don't mean superficially, I mean they don't know the results at a much deeper level, the impact of those results. They don't get results that are worth talking about, so they're a bit embarrassed about the results, or they just basically suck at marketing, and so they're just not able to communicate it. All right, so here's the secret to communicating value. You've got to be believable. It's got to be relevant to the buyer. You can't brag, otherwise they'll just think you're a braggart. You've got to use exactly the right words, the words that they're already thinking and already saying in their own head. It's got to be emotional, because people buy an emotion, justify with logic, so you've got to incorporate the emotional side as well as the quantifiable side. So if it's we're going to cut your accounting down by 300%, that's the quantifiable. But it's also got to have the emotional, like, you're going to win your life back and you're going to have to spend more time on the weekends with your kids. So that's it. That's the secret. So how do you do it? I'm going to show you how you do it. And what we're going to do is we're going to S&D, swipe, steal and deploy a strategy used by the weight loss industry. Now, like I say, they're very successful at selling. $60 billion a year. There's a whole lot of people who want to go from being fat to being skin. And let's see the little tool they use, because it's very, very simple. So Bill Phillips knows how to sell, because he was one of the big leaders in this weight loss area. He had, if you remember, the Body for Life system, and he sold books, food, training programs, all sorts of stuff, CDs, master. Well, he's just come back, and that was about 10 years ago. He's just come back now. He's now dyed his hair, and he's rebleached his teeth, and he's out selling again. So let's see how let's see how he doesn't do it. Here's how Bill Phillips doesn't sell transformations. Remember, the buyer is wanting a result, and they're thinking, can I lose weight? That's what they're thinking. He doesn't say, I've got 24 flavors of high protein, low in fat, blah, 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 blah. That would be selling the inputs. It's not about selling the inputs, Dan. It's about selling the outputs. So let's see what he does. Here's what he does. Oh, perfect. The old fat lady's revenge, right? Get the photo of the before, get the photo of the after. And a note, if you read through this, yeah, it's all about the transformation, and it's all about the end result. Happy lady, fat lady, skinny lady. Okay, not just ladies. Look at old Shane here. Now Shane is in woeful state at 42, 338-pound couch potato to running a marathon. So not a bad effort, Shane. Got to hand it off to you. But man, he was in bad shape. Look at the cut on that. They're always smiling a lot more in the after, eh? You know, their skin colour's nicer and smiling, taking the hat off. Nicer clothes, better background. I mean, looks like he's in a fast food takeaway joint in the first one. Well, what on earth? Imagine seeing Shane come into your takeaway joint, take his shirt off for the photo. Scare all the customers away. Anyway, we digress. So fat lady, thin lady. That is the before and after. Right? And it's a demonstration of the impact that whatever you're selling has. Now obviously for you it's not fat lady, thin lady because you're not selling weight loss products. But the equivalent of a fat lady, thin lady example. Now the reason it works so well is, like I said before, it needs to be believable. Well, if it's a demonstration of a real person, it's believable. Relevant. Well, if you looked at anything like Shane, it would be very relevant for you. Even if you weren't as bad as that, you can still relate to it, wanting to be thinner. You're not bragging because Shane's really just talking about himself. Or you can just talk about Shane and how great he is. But by implication, you get the credit as well. You use exactly the right words because if Shane's talking about what he's done, then Shane knows exactly what to say because he's actually that person. It's emotional and it's quantifiable. He's gone from 338 pounds down to probably half that or less than half that. So it ticks all the boxes. Tick, 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 tick. So this is a little self-serving, I'll admit, but I've often been a really good collector of stats before and after myself, and it does work really well. But just here's one, and it's a good one. Like this is Rico talking about the market share, but it's not. What it lacks is a bit of emotion. It's just the raw results, and I want to sort of, I guess, highlight on you the impact of having a bit more emotion in it. So here's one that's slightly better. I was new to recruitment, wanted to prove myself, and now my hedge fund has built $158,000 in 4 weeks. This guy was actually my first client, which is all good. So that's a bit better. Not bad, but actually this one was quite good. There's concern we may not have the goods. So what I like about this one is it's a bit more emotion starting to creep in, right? You know, Mike Trim was genuinely worried that they were going to cut the Air New Zealand Group's team because the sales weren't going as well as they wanted. Right? By the end of the year, we were 13% above last year, and our best ever year. Okay, so I like the fact there's a bit of emotion in here. This is an even better one. This is Danny Patton. This guy was in London as well. He said, I was not hitting my targets and maybe let go, right? So they were looking at getting rid of him as well. I'm now 31% above my target, built more in the last 3 months. Now, I can't thank you enough, and I seriously believe that I would have been doing something else had we not met, and still been in denial had we not met. So the result's good, and that's weaved into it, but the emotion, I think, is the secret to making this really work. Because emotions, you know, when it starts to tell a story, and potential buyers need to see that story and an emotional story, the before and after. Well, how ironic, eh? 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, but I knew there had to be a better way. So there's a story here, right? The story of before, the pain, the agony. Afterwards, won the Deloitte Fast 50 fastest growing business. Okay, and as you can see, we're still working with Sam, and he's on and off the internet all the time. So question, I know you've got a question. What happens if there's no before and after? Okay, what if I'm a wedding photographer? I can't go and say, well, here's your wedding photographs before and now here thereafter, because we only take them once. Come on, Rich. Sort that one out, man. Okay? You asked for it. You asked for it. I'll tell you what, you might not like what you see. I'll give you an example. Oh, so what the point is, go from good to bad. Go from good. Got that reading the wrong way. Bad to good. So show some bad examples and then show some good examples. Even if the bad examples aren't yours, you're sort of educating people on how it can go wrong. Now, like I say, you asked for it. So weddings, imagine, look at this shop. Selling guns, wedding gowns, cold beer. What a place. That's where all the ladies, and they've got queues of ladies queuing up to try and get their wedding gown from Hussies. Hussies! Even the name of the company, I hadn't seen that before. Hussies. Right, anyway, here's the photos. Here's what you could use. Search the internet. Okay, here's a good before photo or bad photo as an example. Now, these are photos, these are pretty obvious, but if you're a photographer, you might talk about the colour and the lighting, but, you know. Now, you may look at this one and there's the lovely couple. You've got to ask yourself, what's going on here? So, you know, that could be the before, and then you come up with a really good photo. Obviously, maybe not of that couple, because they might not last too long. But now here's one. Cover your eyes. If you don't like, this is not pretty. Now, what was she thinking? What was she thinking? Now, I know it's an example about wedding photographers, but what wedding photographer would allow the bride to be spilling out of her wedding dress? I don't know what she's thinking. But anyway, you could use that and then you could have some elegant photos. And basically the point is, if you're a wedding photographer, you can say, hey, you know, wedding photos can look good or bad. Yeah, anyway, let's just move on. So what happens if I can't promise a result to everyone? Okay, well, let's say you can't promise a result to everyone. Let's say buyer A's only get sort of flatlining results. They get a bit of benefit, but not a truckload. But let's say the B's are the ones who really do get a good result. Right, just sell to buyer B's. Okay, specialise in selling just to them. Now here's a way to increase your believability and accelerate the whole process. You need proof. So you use photos to illustrate, you use testimonials, you use statistics. Independent research are great. If you have any articles in the paper, I had a big full page ad from a client this morning who's in the paper, not an ad, a full page article on them. So first thing we're telling him is make sure you cut that out and make sure that gets sent to your clients before they make decisions, because it's proof that what you're saying is true. So how do I get these results from my clients? Okay, there's only two strategies that I know of. One, ask them, because most of them are pretty happy. If they've had good results like fat lady, skinny lady, then they'll be happy to tell you about what they've done. Or number two, like Bill Phillips actually, run a competition where they've got to submit their before and after photos and before and after stats, results and stories. Because heavy clients seldom talk about the inputs, but they always talk about the results, and they do it in a really, really powerful way because it's far more emotional. And it's quite hard for you to tell emotional stories. It's much easier for them to tell their own story. Big secret, and it works brilliantly well. So let's do a quick recap. Nothing more powerful in communicating value than a real demonstration. Always be honest. Always be honest. And you know, if you find one of your clients has sent an entry in or something like that which is over the top and not believable, take it out. Because you've got to be seen to be believable, and you've just got to be, there's no point being anything but honest. It's you know, if you provide good value, well then you should have enough stories to get good before and afters. So, and remember, the best transformations are emotional, not just about results. So allow the client, if they're writing something up, to embed a lot of emotion into it. That's basically it. What to do if you suck at marketing, the fat lady's revenge. And I reckon if you apply this, you do not need to suck at marketing ever again, because there's nothing more powerful than a demonstration of a real life situation. That's it, guys. Now remember, you said you were only going to watch this video if you did a good result, you'd send me some emails. Now why do you think I said that? Well, exactly, I'm just doing this thing here. So you send me an email if you do well, and I'll publish it and let everyone know how well you've done. And that gives me another before and after story. Hey guys, welcome back. How was that? Not too hard, is it? So, but it does make a big difference. So, hey, want to thank you for coming back to Speed Marketing for 2011. We've got some really cool stuff for you. Key thing is implement each thing as you go along, and it'll make a huge difference for you. And I think you can do really well. Make yourself immune, give yourself an immunity injection to the recession, And man, there's no way while you're at this site your marketing should suck. Shouldn't. Okay, so implement the Fat Lady's Revenge and get ready for the next one. Rock on.